I was thinking of something this morning and last night. I was thinking that when I was born, God gave me a lot of gifts. And I started thinking about that this morning and last night. And He has blessed me with a lot of different kinds of gifts. One of those gifts is being grateful for a lot of things and appreciating a lot of things that I think a lot of people do not appreciate, and actually a lot of people don't even really realize and see. One of those gifts is me being able to appreciate and being grateful for nature. I see things every day and I'm just like in awe of everything about how beautiful the world is. And sometimes I'll just go outside and look at the trees and the plants and the grass and the animals and even the insects like ants and stuff. And I'm able to look at these things and just be so grateful. And I'm able to see how beautiful everything is. I think that's, well, I know that's one of the gifts that God has given me, is being able to appreciate everything outside: the sky, the trees, the plants, the birds, the animals, even the grass. But another thing that He has given me the gift of is being able to appreciate and being able to experience fragrances. I think there's a lot of people that appreciate fragrances and smells, but I don't think a lot of people have ever actually experienced a fragrance or a smell. And that's something I'm very grateful for, that God has given me that gift of, is being able to experience fragrances and smells. Even as a kid, even as a little kid, I would just love to go outside and smell pine trees and the fresh air and pick grass and smell the grass, rub it between my fingers. I was just fascinated in that and smell. And I know now that I was born a fraghead. I know that. I was born that way. He put it in my DNA. All these things are in my DNA, and they are gifts. And it's just not just like flowers and pine trees and fresh air and stuff like that. It's also perfumes and colognes and aftershaves. I'm able to experience those things, and I am so lucky I'm able to do that. And I remember, I don't know how old I was. I was so young. I remember when I first started smelling aftershaves and colognes and perfumes and figuring out where that smell is coming from. I was so young, but I remember being so fascinated and stuff like that, the smells. And as I was growing up, I remember that that smell was coming from the bathroom. Like when my dad would shave, I remember the smell of the shaving cream, the shaving foam, like Barbasol in the air, and I loved that smell. And I remember watching my dad, and I remember that smell, and after he like rinsed his face off, there would be another smell in the air, and it would be aftershave, and I was just like, wow, that is so beautiful. And back in the day, it was always Old Spice or Brut in the air from men. All men, at least where I'm from, all men had Old Spice or Brut or both, and they usually had the aftershave and the cologne. So all men back in the 60s and 70s usually smelled like Old Spice or Brut, and it was so beautiful, that smell. And I remember I couldn't have been no more than like 7 or 8 when I remember sneaking into the bathroom and realizing that that smell that I love so much was coming from these little green bottles. And when I realized that, I was like, I have to have this. I have to have this on me. It smelled beautiful in the air, but I needed to put this on me, and I needed that smell coming from me. And of course, I would go in the bathroom and put a half a bottle on, not knowing that that wasn't a good idea. Of course, I did that like once or twice, and then my dad put a stop to that quick. And that's when I learned how to moderate my application of aftershaves and colognes. But I remember I considered this mine, the Brutes and the aftershave. I considered that mine. My dad considered it his and not mine, but I considered it mine also because I was so in love with smells, and especially the smell of Brut and Old Spice. But when I was old enough, when my dad would like, you know, give me $1 or $2 here and there to buy something, I remember I would save up like $2 and go out and buy my own Old Spice and Brut. It was very, very inexpensive there, or back then. And I remember when I was like 13, I had my own. I started my own collection. I had my Brut and Old Spice, um, and I was happy. And those two fragrances were the first fragrances, like colognes and aftershaves, that I remember having in my collection. Old Spice and Brut. Those were the first two that started my collection ever when I was like 13. Back in 1975, I think, when I was like 13. And ever since 1974, 1975, I've had Brut and Old Spice in my collection ever since. I've never gone without them. As a matter of fact, I still have them. I have the aftershave, and I have the splash on, and I have the Brut cologne. These are all classic Brut classics. But I also have the Brut Eau de Toilette. Um, I know just a handful of people that has this, but not many. Most men have the green bottles, but they don't have the Eau de Toilette. This is the special one, in my opinion, especially since last night, and I'll explain that in just a second. But this is not the classic. This is the Brut original Eau de Toilette. Um, I'll show you the box. This is from Brut Prestige Paris. Um, this company right here that produces this, the Prestige Parfum Brut, they're based out of Paris, France, and they still make these, the Eau de Toilettes, the ones in the glass. This is glass. This is not plastic. As a matter of fact, this is the 100 ml Eau de Toilette Brut atomizer. As a matter of fact, I was curious. I couldn't remember where these came from. All these ones in the green bottle. This includes the cologne, the aftershave, and the splash on. I looked at it last night, and all these are made in Mexico, which broke my heart. I couldn't believe that. But this is not. This is not made in Mexico. This is from Europe, and I'm not 100% sure that this was actually made in France, but I do know it was either made in France or the United Kingdom. It's either one of those two places, either France or the United Kingdom. I actually ordered this. You can't get it here in the United States. I actually had to order this from Europe, and this bottle actually came from the United Kingdom. So I'm not 100% sure which country it was made, but I know it's not made in Mexico. I know that for a fact. Um, but a lot of I hear a lot of guys every once in a while, especially my age, saying that they wish they had that Brut that they remembered from the 60s and 70s. Um, After I did my comparison last night, I realized that the ones in the green bottles are not that. They are not that kind of Brut that I remember back in the 60s and the 70s. But this is the one in the glass bottle. Nowadays, the only the closest that you're going to get to the Brut that was from the 60s and 70s is this one. This is the one from Europe, and this is the one in the glass Eau de Toilette. As a matter of fact, I did a side-by-side comparison last night. I took this cologne and put this on my right arm, and I sprayed this one on my left arm, and I wanted to find out what the differences were in every way, the development and what it smelled like, the longevity, performance, everything. I wanted to find out for myself. So I did a side-by-side comparison last night for, well, actually all night long. And right after the initial spray of both of these, I started comparing them in my head. I would smell the cologne, the classic cologne, and then I smelled the original Eau de Toilette and did a comparison in my head. And I never realized that how far apart they actually are than when I did a side by side comparison last night. I realized that, this still smells like Brut, but it's nothing like Brut used to be when I was growing up with it, because comparing this with the green bottle cologne, I realized how synthetic and chemical this is. As a matter of fact, I started smelling all the green bottles, the aftershave and the splash on, and this, and there's like a burnt rubber smell in these, and it's very chemical and very synthetic. And I never realized how bad they were until I did a comparison with this last night, this Eau de Toilette, and they are miles apart. If you want the smell of Brut from back in the 70s and 60s, this is as close as you're going to get to that. Because I'm not saying that this is all natural smelling, but I'm saying this is so much better as far as quality than the green bottles. This is like today's niche version of Brut. And this is as close as you're going to get to Brut from what it was back in the 70s and 60s. This is as close as you're going to get. So my recommendation, I still like these, but I don't like them as much since I found out how bad they actually are now, compared to this. But I would highly suggest getting this. If you do have Brut bottles, maybe when you run out, try this and see how you like this. As a matter of fact, this is still really inexpensive. I looked on Amazon last night, and I actually got this from the United Kingdom. So I'm not sure if this is actually made in the United Kingdom or made in France, but I got this bottle from um, the United Kingdom. That's where I got this. Um, but I'll put a link in the description on if you want to check this out. It's still extremely inexpensive. This is 100 ml Eau de Toilette, and I think it's like $12. But I'll put a link in the description. You might have to pay a little bit of shipping, but it shouldn't be no more than like 15 bucks for 100 mil, which is like ridiculously cheap for the quality of this, and considering that this is close as you're going to get to what it was back in the day. But anyway, I love you guys, and I hope that y'all got something from this, and I will be back later with something else. Peace.